And here is the latest installment of Ezekiel Kralen's continuing story about the two dogs, Flacco and the second one whose name escapes me at the moment, and the man who takes care of them and drives Ezekiel crazy and extracts money from him for some reason. I don't know why he pays him, but he explains, and maybe I'm just not paying attention. May Glob Help Me is the title of this. Ezekiel Kralen wrote. Email correspondence from November 18th to the 21st. Subject, oh, thank Glob. This just came in the mail. Your eligibility for ACP with Xfinity has been recertified. You will continue to receive your monthly credit toward your Internet service. Oh, thank Glob. Watson wrote, Glob is good. So I replied, the first time I heard the use of Glob instead of God was from that amazing children's Deep Future cartoon series Adventure Time. I think they originated it, and that term stuck with me ever since because, well, that's what globs do. Addendum. This video is 8.5 minutes, so when you have the time. Entitled, Every Oh My Glob in Adventure Time, Your World Will Change for the Watching of It. Subject, Deke's allowance resumed. I handed Deke the usual Chase envelope containing 2 20s and a 10 and told him, why should I give money to someone who's threatened me with violence? So you lost $250 for doing that, and if you threaten me again, it'll cost you $50 each time. And if you scream at me or the dogs, it'll cost you $20. New rules, got it? He said, yeah, with his head lowered and his face turned away from me. Then he piped up with the claim he's never threatened me. I'm just imagining things. No, I'm not, I replied. You threatened to have your buddies beat me up in front of a witness and screaming at me. I did? When was that? Queried the smartass. Oh, 3-4 weeks back, I clarified, and you know you did, so drop it, please, or you'll lose more money. He turned away from me again, and with lowered noggin, and muttered something about my taking him too seriously. He doesn't mean it. I just remained silent, and he offered no more opposition, but asked me to watch the pups for 10 minutes, so he can purchase a snack and a drink at the Chevron station nearby. I said, of course. So off he went, and I sat down on the sidewalk to embrace the little angels and cherish their company, noting that he did not draw Flacco's sweater with her name. Maybe the ink ran out because he filled in the fat letters on Lucky's sweater instead of just drawing outlines. I certainly hope it doesn't mean he loves her less. Except for that confrontation, the entire meetup was amicable. He only had a, quote, new phone for me to charge and upload music because all his previous devices were stolen. I suspect, however, he sold or traded them, but no point arguing, because what's really important is seeing to Lucky and Flacco's health and happiness, so that's my focus. Upon his departure, I told him that in spite of my criticisms I hold against him, he's actually doing spectacularly. I then crouched down to pet and kiss the pups one more time, then turned away to walk back hovel, and Deke's parting words were, thank you. I can imagine my tough love strategy struck him right in the heart, and he got a good taste how his world would be without me in it. Though Boudica forbid he admit it and apologize. Now on to last night's Memo of the Weird presentation. I listened from right when it started, 9 p.m. until 1 a.m., during which time he didn't read my tale, and I was too tired to enjoy it any further and crashed out, resigned to having to wait until the next evening when the podcast is up. But I awakened with another bout of acid reflux hacking at precisely 2:13 a.m., and a little birdie told me to play the show again, because who knows, he might be in the middle of narrating my tale. At first I thought, what are the odds, and lay back to resume listening to my horror stories on the blue smartphone. But after another minute, I decided to switch back to Memo of the Weird, and wouldn't you know it, Watson, I caught him reading my latest tale almost from the beginning, say 2 or 3 paragraphs in. He even paused to admire a hilarious passage from it, which I will splice out and send to you, as I'm sure you'll get a kick out of it. It's only around 10 seconds, but you'll have to wait until this evening when I can get my hands on the podcast. In conclusion, I am quite pleased and at peace now. After winning my simultaneous battles with the ACP debacle and Deke's foul behavior, because both turned out victorious thanks to my persistent uphill struggles and the calm bravado in which I dealt with each. Per the wise instructions of my bodhisattva premise, kudos to the SFPD as well for moving me in that direction. Oh, thank Glob. Watson wrote, I'm not the same person I was before I watched this. So I replied, no one is. Simple quantum theory. The purple floating blob thing who speaks like a valley girl is called Lumpy Space Princess. Oh, thank Glob, Watson wrote, but I thought I was the Lumpy Space Princess. So I replied, you're due vast lumpy residuals then. Subject, Deke's rotten behavior continues. Even though I resumed his allowance by giving him $50 on Saturday for Sunday's payment, when he dropped by last night, he said, can I get last Sunday's payment now? Last Sunday, I replied. I already gave it to you on Saturday. Your next payday is Thursday, as usual. Oh, you said it was for last Thursday, he replied, then went off on a rant how he knows I have the money to make up for some of the allowance I denied him, that the $50 I charged him for threatening me means I still owe him, quote, $150. No, Deke, I corrected him. I was going to penalize you an entire month, but decided to resume payment starting Sunday, and I said your next payment is Thursday. So you lost $150. You'll never see it again, but from here on in, I'm going to charge you $50 each time you threaten me and $20 each time you scream at me or the dogs, and that's that. What he doesn't know is he actually lost $250, but that's not for him to figure out. Sorry, that's for him to figure out, if he does at all. But I give him credit for not screeching his rant, but speaking in a reasonable volume, and he finally backed off, said, okay. I then took his smartphone and a cheap speaker upstairs to charge, and brought water back down for the pups. He was starting to nod out, leaving the pups no cushioning but his own body, which was not enough room for even one dog to comfortably lay down on, just sit up and lose sleep. Infuriating. Besides which, Flacco was not wearing her sweater, though Lucky was. I asked him where it is, and he answered, she removed it herself. It's somewhere in my cart. Which cart, of course, was piled high with lumpy debris and impossible to rummage through to find the sweater. I don't believe you, Deke. I snapped back. She's never tried to take off her sweater, so please dig it out and put it back on. What the hell's wrong with you? At that moment, another vagrant strolled by and greeted Deke from the corner. That's the person who witnessed you threatening me, I said in a hushed tone. He doesn't know squat, Deke replied. He's in his own world. I left it at that and returned upstairs while the other vagrant settled down beside a lamp-post 10 feet away and began schmoozing with Deke. Some time passed, maybe a half hour, and I decided to bring the doggies their meal, even though Deke said they're not hungry. Their master was totally zonked out by then, and sure enough, the pups scarfed up every last bit. So I fed them a second meal, which they halfway finished. I also pulled down a couple of worn jackets from the cart and set it down for Flacco and Lucky, who immediately flopped themselves onto the plush garb. If Deke yells at me for that, I thought so be it, but I'll tell him that'll cost him $20, because he forced them to rest on the dirty concrete. Back hovel, I thought about the money I withheld for threatening me and figured $250 is rather harsh, and he's been excoriated enough, so I'll probably drop the penalty down to $100 and make up the difference over the next 2 weeks. I started by handing him $30 later that day when he woke up. I'll get it all sorted out, I said, and you'll still get a full $50 on Thursday. He replied by thanking me. He also didn't say a word about my laying down some cloth for the mutts. Very good. He lingered a few more hours and moved behind the building when several other houseless folks showed up, including Scampy, who lied down on the sidewalk with Flacco close by. Sometime just after dusk, he moved cart and doggies out front below my window and called me downstairs. Look, I got to go somewhere for an hour. Can you watch them for me? Forget it, Deke. Not going to happen, I replied, and began to open the front gate to return home, but held it ajar as he rattled on about my not caring about him or the dog, so I caved in a bit. Seriously, you promise you'll return in an hour? No, I can't promise. Maybe longer, he replied with a shrug. I don't know. Forget it, Deke, I called back, but let the gate slam shut as I approached him once more. The police are staying on top of the homeless sweep. I can't risk it. If they show up and tell me to move on, where can I go? I'm not homeless myself, so they could fine me for being a public nuisance. He then flung a litany of guilt trips in my face, none of which I bothered to defend, but did say, I'm listening, Deke, but it's all BS reaching my ears. BS'd like how other homeless are camping out nearby again, and chased away promptly. He neglected to mention that I fucked up dog-sitting indoors, that I don't even allow him to visit anymore, right, as if he wouldn't wreck my living situation if I did. That I threatened to call animal control if he tied up the pups to his cart and left for parts unknown, leaving me with not just the hounds but his piled-high cart that would surely attract the police. That I'm a liar because I don't really love the dogs, etc., etc. But I suspect Watson, all he really planned to do was ride his bike around the city for 2 hours or longer. You have other friends who can watch your dogs, I admonished. So stop the drama, please. Upon saying that, a delivery truck rolled up to the curb with its engine rumbling such a cacophony, I became deaf to his rants. And didn't look like the noise was going to stop any time soon, so I guess it saved the day for this embattled pilgrim, as it offered me the perfect excuse to depart. I can't hear you. I'm going inside now. And so I did, hoping this argument was over and I'd know some peace this evening. The truck rumbled on for 10 minutes more, and believe me, it was no less noisy from where I sat in my room. Relieved that it finally stopped, I hoped he wouldn't call back up to my window and try to coerce me to watch the dogs. But a few minutes later I heard his summon, "Yo, yo, yo! Hello, oh!" I braced myself for another confrontation as I walked back down the... "Oh, I know, you meant to say hello!" I would, yeah. That's not the way I would write that. How would you write that? I don't know. He goes on. I braced myself for another confrontation as I walked back down the stairs and stepped outside, upon which he declared, "Okay, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going to tie the dogs up and leave them stranded. But I don't understand why you're acting this way. If you love them and say it's always an honor to watch over them, you could even put your tent back up. They'd love that." "No, you understand the situation perfectly," I replied. "You know neighbors will complain, the cops will show up again, and I could get in trouble this time around. Did you just bring me back outside to gripe some more?" "No, I didn't. I just want to understand where you're coming from," he replied, like some innocent lamb being sheared for the first time. "Oh, put a sock in it. I'm going back inside," I retorted, and did exactly that.